In the build-up to Shiloh 2025,
Shiloh 2025 and breaking new grounds. Remember, December.
a question is quietly circulating across Living Faith Church circles, across Abuja, and across the Nigerian Pentecostal community. Is Shiloh 2025 about to witness the lowest attendance in years? For many, it sounds unthinkable. Shiloh has, for decades, been one of Africa's largest annual gatherings, drawing millions both physically and online. But behind the massive anticipation, there is a silent tension many are refusing to acknowledge publicly. A tension created by the emergence of a new ministry led by one of Living Faith's most trusted, beloved, and influential voices, Bishop David Abioye.
On this final note, and to the glory of God, this assembly with the name Living Word Conquerors Global Assembly is hereby inaugurated this day.
This year, for the first time, Living Faith's biggest annual event may be happening without the full weight of one of its strongest generals. And while the global church continues to prepare for Shiloh, another wave is rising quietly but powerfully on the other side of Abuja. Today, we examine the silent divide happening behind the scenes. A divide that may reshape attendance, influence, and loyalty in ways no one expected. Who is Bishop David Abioye? To understand the potential impact of this shift, we must begin with the man at the center of it. Bishop David Abioye is not just another pastor. For more than 40 years, he served side by side with Bishop David Oyedepo, the founder of Living Faith Church. He was more than a deputy, he was the stabilizing voice of the ministry. A teacher known for his discipline, humility, and deep commitment to the doctrine of faith. As the former vice president of the ministry, Abioye was second in command for decades. Many regarded him as the perfect example of loyalty, stewardship, and total submission to the vision of the commission. But his influence did not end at headquarters. He became the spiritual anchor of the entire Abuja Church network. Under his leadership, the Abuja Church grew into one of the strongest and most vibrant branches of Living Faith globally. Thousands looked up to him not just as a pastor, but as a father, a mentor, and a stabilizing spiritual force. It is impossible to talk about the strength of Living Faith in Abuja without mentioning his name. His sermons shaped families. His prayers strengthened the military, the civil service, and the business community. His leadership inspired a generation. So when a divide emerges involving a man who carried such weight within the system, it is not a small matter. It affects structure, loyalty, attendance, and even the spiritual climate of a major global event like Shiloh. The retirement policy that changed everything.
Some things here just to show you before we go to the blessing. This is our administrative policy, 1998, reviewed 2001. This is administrative policy handbook 2003. This is the mandate 2012 and reviewed this year after 12 years.
The story of this divide begins in 2024 when Living Faith Church introduced a new retirement structure for its senior pastors. The policy, aimed at restructuring leadership and ensuring generational transition, required senior ministers who had reached a certain age or had served for several decades to step down from their administrative roles. For many churches, such policies are normal. But in a ministry where fathers had served the vision from the early 1980s, the emotional impact was unavoidable. This policy applied to many respected leaders, including Bishop David Abioye. And so, after decades of service, Abioye officially stepped away from the administrative leadership structure. The reaction was immediate. Across Nigeria and beyond, members expressed shock, curiosity, and in many cases, deep sadness. Many Abuja members who had known him as their pastor for decades struggled to adjust to the idea of his retirement. But what shocked most people was not the retirement itself, it was what happened next. Within months, it became clear that God was leading Bishop Abioye into a new direction. A new assignment. A new ministry. And while the retirement policy was designed for structure, it unintentionally opened the door to one of the biggest shifts in the history of Living Faith Church. A shift that would eventually set the stage for a potential impact on Shiloh 2025. Abioye's new ministry, Living Word Conquerors Global Assembly. 6 months after his retirement, a development occurred that reshaped the entire conversation about Bishop Abioye's future and his relationship with Living Faith Church. Instead of stepping into a quiet, post-retirement lifestyle, he took a bold and decisive step. He launched a brand new ministry, Living Word Conquerors Global Assembly. But this launch did not come out of nowhere. It was a natural progression of something he had already begun shortly after leaving Living Faith. The hour of revival meetings, which started as interdenominational gatherings, began drawing massive attendance. These meetings revealed that the fire in his heart for revival had not faded due to retirement. It had, in fact, intensified. Week after week, thousands attended these revival meetings. They came hungry for the same depth, consistency, and spiritual authority they had known under him for decades in Abuja. And as the revival meetings continued, it became clear that something deeper was happening. A new spiritual family was forming around him. When he officially launched Living Word Conquerors Global Assembly, a significant number of former Living Faith members naturally migrated. These were people he had pastored for decades. People who had been shaped by his teachings. People who had trusted him with their spiritual direction, their families, and their destinies. In Abuja, especially, the emotional loyalty was unmistakable. For many, Abioye had been more than a pastor. He had been a father. And when a spiritual father moves, it is not surprising that many children follow. This migration, though quiet and respectful, has created one of the most significant shifts in Nigeria's Pentecostal movement today. And it sets the stage for the next issue, an issue that directly affects Shiloh 2025. The critical role Abioye played in Shiloh participation. To understand the weight of this shift, one must understand how strategic Bishop Abioye was to Shiloh attendance. For years, he served as the head of the Abuja Church system, which is one of the largest and most influential arms of Living Faith worldwide. Every December, Abuja was known as one of the strongest feeder hubs for the Shiloh congregation. From coordination to transportation, mobilization, and spiritual preparation, Abioye was always at the center of the national effort to bring thousands to Canaan land. Under his leadership, buses were filled. Flights were booked in groups. Families traveled in convoys. Departments were organized. And year after year, Abuja delivered massive numbers to Shiloh. His influence was not administrative, it was relational. People responded to his call because they trusted his spiritual leadership. When he spoke about Shiloh, people followed. When he urged members to prepare, they did. When he mobilized, the people moved. This means that for 2 decades, Shiloh's physical attendance had a major boost because of the Abuja Church and because of the man at its helm, Bishop David Abioye. Now, for the first time, he is no longer part of that system. And thousands who used to move because of his voice are now looking in a different direction. The new reality, 2 ministries, same December. Shiloh 2025 is scheduled to begin on December 9th. But this year, for the first time, there is a new dynamic at play. Living Word Conquerors Global Assembly, Abioye's new ministry, is entering its first full December season. While the ministry may not be planning something at the scale of Shiloh, it is expected that as a new work, December will be a major period of gathering, prayer, and foundation building. New churches often maximize festive periods to strengthen identity and community. This creates a scheduling clash that has never existed before. Members who migrated from Living Faith to join Abioye will now prioritize activities in their new spiritual home. They will be present where their pastor is. They will commit where they now belong. The most significant shift is psychological. It is the shift from institutional loyalty to pastoral loyalty. For years, many were loyal to Living Faith because Abioye was part of it. Now that he is no longer there, their loyalty has simply moved with him. This is the quiet undercurrent shaping the conversation about Shiloh 2025. As Living Faith prepares for its biggest annual gathering, a parallel movement is emerging. And that movement is built around a man whose voice has shaped Abuja for decades. This is not a fight. It is not conflict. It is simply the natural evolution of spiritual loyalty in the wake of pastoral transition. Potential impact on Shiloh 2025 attendance. With these shifts in place, Shiloh 2025 may experience one of the most noticeable attendance changes in recent history. The first category of expected reduction comes from Abuja Church members, those who had followed Abioye for years. Their presence at Shiloh was largely because of his leadership. Without him there, many may choose not to make the journey. The second group includes people nationwide who have always been personally loyal to Abioye. Nigerians are known for deep respect for spiritual leaders, and when a trusted leader steps into a new assignment, many follow wholeheartedly. The psychology behind this shift runs deeper than logistics. It is rooted in spiritual loyalty, pastoral trust, and the connection people feel to the voice that has guided their lives. People attend Shiloh for encounters, but they also attend because of the leaders who inspire those encounters. For thousands, Abioye was that leader. Now that he is no longer part of the living faith structure, attendance patterns may naturally adjust. This does not diminish Shiloh as a global event. It remains powerful and influential. But the reality is that one of its strongest tributaries has quietly been redirected. And that redirection might create a measurable impact when Shiloh begins on December 9th. This is the great divide no one is talking about. The shift that is happening quietly, respectfully, and yet powerfully. Why this is the great divide no one is talking about. When we talk about the departure of Bishop David Abioye from Living Faith Church, many people focus only on the surface events, a new ministry, a new movement, a new direction. But beneath these visible changes lies something much deeper, something far more significant than most observers are willing to admit. It is what can best be described as a quiet but historic divide. Leadership transitions have always been sensitive moments in major Pentecostal ministries. These transitions often create microfragmentations that are not always obvious in public. Nigerian Pentecostalism, in particular, operates on a very strong personality-driven system, where spiritual fathers are not just administrators. They are symbols, voices, identities, and anchors of loyalty. This is where the divide becomes visible. In the Living Faith family, the membership has long identified with two paternal figures. First, the father of the commission, Bishop David Oyedepo, whose apostolic mandate and prophetic authority define the global vision. And second, their pastoral father, Bishop David Abioye, the steady shepherd who nurtured members, especially in the north, through decades of teaching, mentoring, counseling, and spiritual covering. Now that Abioye has stepped into a new calling, thousands of believers, quietly, silently, internally, are having to choose where their true allegiance lies. It is not a rebellion. It is not a movement of anger. It is simply the reality of spiritual relationships. Many members now stand between two fathers, the father of the commission and the pastoral father who shaped their Christian journey. This internal tension is the great divide, and even though it is rarely discussed publicly, it is reshaping the emotional and spiritual landscape of the Living Faith community. How Living Faith may respond. Living Faith Church is not just a ministry, it is a highly organized, globally structured apostolic system. Because of this, their response will not be emotional or reactionary. Instead, it is likely to be strategic, institutional, and deeply prophetic in nature. First, there may be increased strategic mobilization. This could include strengthening existing regional structures, training new leaders, and reinforcing the hierarchy that has sustained the ministry for more than 4 decades. Second, the church will likely emphasize institutional loyalty. For decades, Living Faith has taught the importance of commitment to the vision and submission to spiritual authority. With thousands of members facing a moment of decision, leadership may reinforce teachings on staying connected to the grace upon the commission. Third, the Shiloh prophetic agenda will likely be given even greater emphasis. Shiloh has always been the annual platform where the ministry redefines direction, reaffirms vision, and rekindles loyalty. With Abioye's new ministry gaining momentum, Living Faith may use Shiloh 2025 as a strategic moment to re-anchor the global family. Finally, attention will likely shift toward strengthening new leadership in Abuja, especially at Goshen. This is a sensitive period, and ensuring stability in the north-central region will be crucial for maintaining organizational continuity. Overall, the ministry's response will be calm, measured, and deeply rooted in its well-established system of governance. What this means for the future of both ministries. For Living Faith Church, this moment signals the beginning of a new generational phase. Every great ministry eventually reaches a turning point where foundational leaders transition and younger voices rise to take their place. Abioye's departure may accelerate this generational recalibration, forcing the ministry to prepare new leaders who will shape the next 20 years. For Bishop David Abioye's new ministry, this marks the birth of a fresh revival movement. His calling is attracting believers who resonate with his pastoral depth, his gentle but firm leadership style, and his long-standing influence in the north. The emergence of his ministry could spark a renewed wave of spiritual hunger, discipleship, and revival across Nigeria and beyond. In the long term, there may be a gradual shift in membership dynamics between both ministries. This does not necessarily mean conflict, it simply reflects the natural flow of spiritual alignment. Some believers will remain deeply rooted in Living Faith. Others will feel called to follow the pastoral grace they have known for decades. On a national scale, This moment may reshape the Nigerian Pentecostal landscape. New alliances, new movements, and new spiritual expressions may emerge as both ministries continue to grow in unique directions. It is a moment of transition, transformation, and quiet reorganization within the body of Christ. As we reflect on these developments, one thing becomes clear: Bishop David Abioye's new ministry is not just another church plant. It is an event that is reshaping spiritual dynamics ahead of Shiloh 2025. For the first time in decades, believers are watching a senior foundational leader step into an entirely new mandate while the mother ministry continues on its own apostolic path. This is more than a story of departure. It is the unfolding of a divine script, a realignment of destinies, a quiet shift that may define the next era of Nigerian Pentecostalism. And so we leave you with a final question, one that every observer, believer, and analyst must consider. Is this a natural transition? Is it a divine separation? Or are we witnessing the beginning of a new era in global Pentecostal ministry? The answer may not be clear today, but the impact will be felt for years to come.